Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan MS Pearce, and I am joined today on ATP Geopolitics with Greg Terry, who's co-streaming this on the Greg Terry Experience.
Yes, we're both live.
Greg.
Thank you, JP.
Thank
And
you.
for those of you that are on my channel, welcome JP over here. You guys know we're partners in crime and we look at things differently and find the middle ground. And there is a lot unfolding. We're a couple of minutes late starting because we're getting new information on a terrible strike in Dnipropetrovsk region on a mining site where we look right now, as of 3 minutes ago, to have 190 underground still trapped, and no word on the casualty list yet. We do have 8 miners that have been extracted. This is in Ukraine, in the Dnipropetrovsk region, struck by Shaheeds, just happening a couple of hours ago, but we're just learning about it now. So this is breaking.
192 miners. Yeah, 192 miners underground. Evacuation is ongoing. This is the 4th large-scale Russian attack on coal enterprises, a D-Tech company, in the past 2 months. Russian mass attack traps nearly 200 miners underground. Evacuation underway. Russia launched a large-scale attack against a coal mine in Dnipropetrovsk. So that is happening, as well as we're hearing Russians hitting a power plant in Chernihiv too. So I've been saying to my audience recently, Greg, that this is a really tough time for Ukraine at the moment in terms of their energy infrastructure being hit. And I think there is an asymmetry there, even though Ukraine is doing a good job of doing the same to Russia. I think there's an asymmetry. I think it's somewhat easier for Russia to do this to Ukraine than Ukraine to Russia. And they have larger numbers of drones and missiles, so they are really hurting the Ukrainians.
This is where you get to when there's an advantage, not only with geography and infrastructure, size, the amount of weapons. You know, Russia, the massive nation geographically, and although much of central Russia, and I've been to all these places, and the far east, really undeveloped and poor critical infrastructure. Western Russia and northwestern, you know, many of some of the most beautiful cities in the world. I'm going to always do my best to tell you the truth, but there's a lot more infrastructure there. Plus, Russia has been hitting Ukrainian infrastructure for almost 4 years. Ukraine has just really focused the last 9 to 12 months on hitting energy infrastructure. So not only is there a geographical difference, there's a supply difference. And you can see the video JP shared, that was a Shaheed strike. And I can tell you exactly what happened there. It's unstoppable. Okay.
That's a perpendicular.
Okay. Let me explain to people what happens. Let me explain to you what happens. Russia is swarming attacks now with Shaheeds, and they are using layered Shaheed attacks, meaning, like Zelensky tried to share in the White House, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, where he was explaining modern warfare with the mixture of drones and missiles. Yes, Russia has the advantage on that, but on the drone attacks themselves, and that's 100% a Shaheed attack, what Russia will do is they're flying Shaheeds at X level, which used to be 30 meters, 60 meters. It's nothing to look right up in the air and see a Shaheed go right above your head. I've seen it many times. So 30 or 60, then 100 meters, 200 meters. But now with technology change, they're running them slow, still at 100 meters, but there's Shaheeds up here, see, off camera at 2 kilometers. So the air defense is looking here, and then all of a sudden you just have straight down dive bomb to the target. And that's exactly what you just witnessed at the mine, meaning they had the perfect markers, perfect to target it.
Yeah, I'm just we've got a lot to talk about. Obviously, this breaking news being the case as well. We're going to be talking about the Zelensky-Trump meeting because I mean, there's so much to discuss there, and I know you've already done analyses of that. I've been away for the weekend, so I've just got back late this afternoon, and I'm probably a little bit out of it in terms of the amount of time I haven't been able to dedicate to doing research on this.
Well, I think I had some guys call me today and say, "Where's JP? I haven't seen 31 videos released today." I said, I think he's out this weekend.
This is true. Like,
so, no, there's a lot to talk about, but the breaking news is this mining strike. And I'm okay. So I'm reading Pro News right now. I'll keep us updated as we go through. If we get some results, you need to remember it's 9:09 p.m. and it's completely dark there. And let me tell you about dark. All you have to do is look out at that where the mine is. It's dark. And so that will make it very difficult for them to recover. And you say, well, why wouldn't they just fire up a lot of lights? Excuse me.
Yeah.
You work in the dark. If not, you'll be hit. It's the reality of this war.
Yes, it is. It's
another
tough.
thing, JP, breaking is the ceasefire in Gaza is as fragile as it could possibly be. Netanyahu and Israel right now, on the Middle East, guys and friends I have, are waiting just for a green light, and they're going to completely unload on Gaza again. So this is a lot also of what Zelensky was saying. When you talk about a ceasefire with Russia or just a portion, you don't have any idea what you're talking about with the ceasefire with Russia. Gaza is a few kilometers. We have a 1,500 kilometer war zone and front line. So this Zelensky made that statement in the White House. He made a reference to that peace that's fragile, that ceasefire that was fragile in Gaza. And now we see it much more fragile.
Yeah, there's a lot of discussion we could have around that with regard to how that affects Ukraine and the US's position on Ukraine. Because some people are saying, right, I think even Zelensky might have said this, that now that the peace looks like it could be on the way to that area, or now that that's been sewn up, if you like, then actually the US can concentrate more on Ukraine rather than Gaza, Middle East. So that could be a good thing for Ukraine. But now that if that isn't the case in Gaza, and if that is flaring up again, then that's going to distract the US away from Ukraine. But then other people might say, actually, the US needs to be distracted away from Ukraine because they're not helping at all.
I completely agree with that viewpoint. We see how that when a little focus went away from Gaza and Israel and Iran, all it took was one phone call, strategically timed, initiated by Vladimir Putin, to completely recircuit Donald Trump's thought process.
Yeah. But
it doesn't matter. Listen, I'm getting ready to put a video out after this live. I've been working on it up to the live. I'm almost finished it. Guys, if you're here on my channel or Johnny's channel, make sure you catch this video later, because you are going to be inspired by Zelensky and by Bratchuk, another soldier I follow, and I'm interpreting their statements, especially Bratchuk. Ukraine's not giving up, guys, no matter what.
Yeah. So before we go to talk about the meeting between Trump and Zelensky, and you weren't aware of this, so I'd be interesting to get your initial thoughts on this. This is something I reported in my hits and losses video. I have the original Dutch interview, a newspaper article behind a paywall, but I've got the archived version. So this is interesting. Dutch intelligence suspends sharing arrangements with the US after concluding that high-level intel was routinely being shared by the White House with their friends in the Kremlin. Right, so this is coming from a newspaper article here in the for the Dutch, it's the Volkskrant, and they interviewed two intelligence heads here. And I'm going to join the interview a little bit down. It says, while this is happening in Europe, the US is rapidly moving towards an autocracy, says this Dutch media site. US President Donald Trump is deploying the military against his own people. Judges' rulings are being ignored. The head of the NSA surveillance agency was fired for allegedly being disloyal. Resync, so one of these Dutch intelligence chiefs, says, it's a great sadness for us. We knew the man well. Question, is it still responsible to continue intensive intelligence sharing with the US at the same pace? Resync then says, we visited the CIA and NSA a few months ago, even with my own surprise. How are things going on the work floor? That gave me a positive sense of reassurance. Our ties are good and will remain strong. That doesn't change the fact that we regularly evaluate our collaboration. Question, what is the conclusion, for example, when it comes to sharing intelligence about Russia, where it is uncertain what the US will do with it? Resync, that will be weighed. Question, are you reluctant to share certain information? Resync, I can't comment on how that relationship is now compared to before, but it's true that we make the assessment and sometimes we don't share things anymore. Quote, question, that's a striking break. What has been the most significant change? Akaboom, the other guy, says, we don't judge what we see politically, but we look at our experiences with the services, and we are very alert to the politicization of our intelligence and to human rights violations. What does it mean? Question, what does it mean in practice if there are risks at these points? Akaboom says, sometimes we have to think case by case, can I still share this information or not? Question, is it possible to share bulk data such as intercepted telecom and internet traffic containing information about Dutch citizens with the US? Akaboom says, we can't say what we do or don't share, but we can say that we're more critical. Question, more critical than a year ago? Akaboom, yes. Question, just to be clear, does it still happen that raw data, including data from Dutch people, is sent to American services? Resync, hesitantly, phew. Akaboom, I don't think we can rule it out. Resync, I think it's complicated to rule it out completely. So on and so forth. So we've got this situation where the claim is, well, the idea here from these two Dutch intelligence chiefs, that they are not sharing intelligence as freely as they were with the United States of America at the moment. That is absolutely incredible. And there's also a discussion around this. I saw discussion around this article earlier today where the idea is that the Europeans are working more closely and more intensely than they've ever worked before in terms of intelligence sharing, and that the US might be being kind of shut out a little bit because there is this threat that the US have given their intelligence to the Kremlin. I mean, who would have thought this like 10 years ago? Absolutely remarkable. Anyway, I just thought that was another.
It's very interesting, but to be quite honest, we don't need Dutch intelligence. I'm sorry. And I'm not trying to be dismissive, but the reality is right now, here's what we can factually say. And that is the Europeans are ticked off at the United States. So it would not surprise me if they go and, hey, we're not going to be so quick to share. We're not going to be so quick to share things that we see that you may not be aware of, because it's not working when they do share. We have Witkoff and Trump basically coming out screaming at Zelensky. Now we are learning from multiple sources, you just need to quit, give up the territory, because if not, you're going to lose everything, which is a Kremlin talking point of capitulation, and Ukraine will not do that. 100% put it in the bank. Now, I can tell you that Merz is very angry, and I'm getting that from my Ukrainian sources. He and Zelensky spent hours on the phone after the Friday. The reality is, I think the Europeans are very angry right now because just days before, Mr. Pearce, we had the most incredible rhetoric coming out of the American permanent representative to NATO, or the ambassador to NATO, not permanent, that's UN, Matthew Whitaker. He says, listen, Yeah, we're talking about sending systems and, you know, whatever they may be. We need to stand with Ukraine. We need to send weapons. We need to work through the Pearl Initiative. The European nations, NATO getting stronger than ever. It's coming. It's coming. And even up until Thursday, most of the world was still thinking that there was a possibility that Tomahawks would come to Ukraine. And then the entire narrative flips, and it doesn't just flip as, you know, we're going to give you everything except that. We're going to do this. We're going to sanction Russia. No, there was really very little other than Zelensky was able to meet with Raytheon, the manufacturer of the Patriots. He was able to meet with the whoever manufactures F-16s.
Lockheed Martin.
Thank you.
Northrop Grumman,
Northrop Grumman. Yeah. You know, having those communications. The other thing that Zelensky was able to accomplish, and I remind everybody watching that this man, in the most pressure-filled situation in the White House, surrounded by media, looking across the table at Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, Bessent, Marco Rubio, and Hegseth, immense pressure with staged questions to trip him up about Tomahawks, and completely staged. Peter Ducey's questions completely staged and a setup. He didn't fall for any trap, and he's speaking in his third language.
I heard, because I wasn't watching all of this firsthand, so I was kind of trying to get my information from all these sources whilst being away for the weekend. So, as I say, poorly prepared. I do apologize, but people were saying, a few were saying in my comment threads that Zelensky did do a really good job of parrying those potential slip-ups in the pressers and whatnot, and in the media. He's done an actually good job since the meeting, because he had only a day to prepare for what was essentially a completely different meeting. So they've been preparing for this Tomahawk meeting, and Trump had been a completely different person with regard to approach to Ukraine. And then, you know, Putin is freaking clever, right? So he goes, right, I need to change the narrative here, phones up Trump the day before, and whether there's compromat there, whether there's just the ability to manipulate and influence too easily, but Trump comes away and we're back to square one. The title of this video is Back to Square One.
I said,
like, we've been here before.
I titled similar to you. You put yours up before me, and I'm linking on you. I said, here we go again.
Yeah. So frustrating.
And why do I suggest that these questions were staged as a setup to anger Zelensky, to get him to put on any type of disrespect towards the United States publicly in front of the cameras? And the reason I say that is not because of the content of the question. That's obvious. But when the reporter from Ukraine asked Donald Trump a question about Tomahawks, Donald Trump looked right at that reporter. Where are you from? Ukraine. Give me your question. He answered it briefly, and it says, okay, so I know he told you to ask that question. So it's like you're trying to set me up. So it's all there, guys. It's nothing but I guess it would be an SHIT show, because that's what it was. But the reality is it was disappointing, but at the same time, I think it was eye-opening and confirming for people. There's just no direction in the United States administration other than chaos.
I think there's a lot to that, and this has been observed by a number of analysts and onlookers, that actually they don't know what they're doing. John Bolton keeps saying this. I know he's now being indicted, but he said that they just don't. There's no direction. They don't have a clue, and that seemed to be apparent by flip-flopping all over the place. And I don't know. I think there are probably my opinion would be there's probably competing elements in the American administration, because I think the White House and the people around Trump have a Project 2025 agenda, and that looks very different from what the Pentagon would have. The Pentagon outside of Hegseth, like the existing network framework of American military and intelligence resources would, for the last 70 years, they know exactly who Russia is, right? And then the Trump administration comes in, and I think you've got this tension, which then leads to chaos, which is the White House wants something, the Pentagon would want something else, and you've got a fight going on there, and then Europe's getting involved. I will push back a little bit on Dutch intelligence not being very important. Actually, Dutch intelligence would be part of EU intelligence, or Europe-wide, but also, there is the threat of, is the Dutch situation indicative of other nations as well? So what is definitely important to the United States in a tangible way is, say, Five Eyes, because back some time ago, there was this realized that Five Eyes is UK, Canada, US, New Zealand, Australia. And actually the UK intelligence is we punch above our weight. So we actually have a very, very important intelligence service that does help the US a lot. There are certain countries where we operate better than the US. Same with actually the French as well, too, it has to be said. But if we're starting to see Five Eyes, because they realized some years ago that not all countries need to do the same work if we're singing off the same song sheet. So the US can specialize over here, UK specialize over here, Canada, New Zealand, Australia over, but then if there are members of the Five Eyes that are starting not to share with the US and the EU or Europe more generally, then actually that does present a problem going forward, I would suggest. But anyway, is whether that Dutch position is representative. But sorry,
time will tell.
Yeah. So going back to here, like, this is what you were saying earlier, Greg. During a tense meeting at the White House on Friday, says the Financial Times, Trump urged Zelensky to accept Russia's terms, warning that Putin had said he would destroy Ukraine if Kyiv refused. This goes directly against what he said previously.
Pause there. First of all, I never trust FT for anything on the planet yet. I trust when it's corroborated by 2 or 3 other sources, and this has been corroborated. The meeting was aggressive, not shouting. Trump cursed regularly, aggressively. Ukraine was not permitted to show their updated war maps, their plans. That was off the table.
Right, I was wondering about that. That's bad news.
They were not able to. This is confirmed from the Ukrainian side. That's why I'm comfortable to share. Okay, I agree.
There it goes. This is exactly what you're saying there.
They were not permitted to share their information, and it was just very, very heated.
Bad for Ukraine.
Heated.
Just to confirm, so the FT says during the meeting with Zelensky in the White House, Trump was cursing all the time, as you said, tossed aside maps of the front line in Ukraine. I mean, this is bad news. Insisted Zelensky surrendered the entire Donbass region to Putin, and repeatedly echoed talking points Putin had made in a call a day earlier. During Friday's meeting, Trump appeared to have adopted many of Putin's talking points verbatim, even when they contradicted his own recent statements about Russia's weaknesses, said European officials briefed on the meeting. Trump told Zelensky he was losing the war, warning if Putin wants it, he will destroy you. I mean, this is like Trump had got onside, had got better intelligence, and now it's gone back, but not just to what it was before. This is actually, if that's true, that's worse than it was before. Like, Trump has literally swung like a pendulum to the other pretty much extreme. That's really bad, is my take.
Well, put yourself in President Zelensky's shoes.
Oh,
for a
God,
moment.
The frustration.
No, just everybody, even watching this stream right now, put yourself into Zelensky's shoes. And there's other representatives there, but just go in Zelensky's shoes. You're sitting in front of all these cameras. You're meeting with President Trump in the new gold office. You're listening to these guys talk about a war that truly they know nothing about. And you have to digest this information and then try to respond in a way and then go to a closed door meeting. It's extremely difficult. It's reminiscent of the first meeting in the White House when J.D. Vance attacked Zelensky aggressively. And, you know, Trump finally ended up pushing him on the shoulder and saying, you have no cards. That entire time, Zelensky knew that Operation Spiderweb was getting ready to happen. It had already been planned. He never opened his mouth. Friday, he turned to the reporter and he said, you guys don't understand this war. This is a technological war. You put all your faith and trust in your, you know, your tomahawks and your missiles, but those are just a part of the warfare. Now it's thousands of drones, and in the middle of those drones, strategic missile strikes happen. That is why we need tomahawks or an equivalent, or the ability to strike long range effectively. And he is educating everybody on what the war is really like, but they don't listen to it. I mean, they do, or they choose not to listen to it, or they have completely been immersed in the Russian talking points and the Russian perspective. We're dominating the line, we're running over it, and everybody's surrendering to us. The Nazis in the Kyiv regime are just wasted civilians in Kursk. They're attacking our hospitals, our civilian places. This is what Russia's been saying all week. And it's, you know, they had the Russia Today 20th anniversary, and Putin's talking about the greatness of the military and how important Russia Today is for spreading not propaganda, but telling the truth. And right now, I watched today, there is a big battle to get RT back on in the United States right now.
That is bad. That if that happens,
I'm telling you,
game over.
There's 1,000, however many on your channel. There's lots of people watching. Watch for it, guys. RT potentially coming back to the United States.
That would be the biggest indication that there is something rotten right at the heart of the United States administration. Excuse
me. If you were the sitting president of the United States, okay, and at the end of a meeting, in front of world press, cabinet leaders, a foreign delegation, you drop an F-bomb. Of course, I didn't put that on my video and show people. You just have no respect for yourself, and you have no respect for the people around you when you have to resort to dropping F-bombs as the president of the United States. Secondly, you want to talk about moral character? I don't care if I disagree with 99.9% of what you believe, Johnny Pearce. I would never place a picture of myself flying an airplane and dropping feces on you. I have too much respect for you as a human being with a different opinion.
Right. So this
forget
is really
it. There is no moral character there.
So just in case people don't know what you're talking about, that I have that actually lined up. So this is the No Kings protest, and there's an AI video that he shares with himself wearing a crown. Like it's just unbelievable stuff. AI video of him dropping feces from King Trump. King Trump is written on the side of the that airplane. It's just absolutely incredible stuff.
He's you're talking about moral depravity.
It's just so unserious, and I've said this for a long time. It's just, but I also want to get your view on this. Like at the meeting, imagine being Zelensky going in, and the team and the Ukrainian team going in, and you see the Secretary of War for the United States sitting there wearing a Russian tie, which looks to be an actual Russian plain flag tie that you can buy off Amazon, right? He's wearing a Russian tie. Like what do you read from that? Because that's so
let me make this statement. I don't know. I didn't dress Pete Hegseth that day, and it really doesn't matter in the long run, because the perspective will be there. Whether it was intentional, he bought it on Amazon the night before, or he thinks it's an American flag or French flag or Russian flag, I get it. the bottom line is Zelensky and those sitting across will look at that and go, dude, you're wearing a Russian tie. That's what they would think. So it doesn't matter really what we think. So, but yes, it has that appearance.
Yeah, and some people saying, well, the UK flag, the flag has those colours. Yeah, but you would never wear that tie. You know, in a Ukraine Russia discussion like that, that is the arrangement of the Russian flag with the same thickness. Like the UK has different thicknesses of white, red, and blue, right? That's a tricolour flag. That I'm sorry is much more likely Russian than any other representation.
I can't disagree with that. I can just tell you that you then have to look into the character of the person, and you can go back to the way he has made statements and how he communicates, and we're reviving the warrior ethos to our fighting soldiers and da. You know, so is it possible he would go that way? Of course.
It's yeah, quite incredible. Okay, so yeah, as some people are saying, you know, probably a provocation. Hegseth has made a statement, make no mistake, but you know, you could read that in many ways. I just think, you know, if it was not on purpose, then it's a really naive mistake to make. I mean, that's a school kid error. Now, going back to the meeting, this was asked of Zelensky after the meeting. Did Trump change his rhetoric on the Tomahawks because of Putin's call? Zelensky answers, I don't really know, because we didn't meet with Trump before his phone call. But for today, again, it's good that he didn't say no, but I think Trump realized that the Russians are afraid of this, which is quite revealing. I mean, yeah, the Russians are afraid, and that was a part of the conversation between Putin and Trump, and Trump has now reneged on what looked like a decision that was probably going to go Ukraine's way, and Zelensky is left trying to pick up the pieces and spin it in a way that's as positive as possible. Well, he didn't say no, even though he didn't clearly say yes either. What else do we have? Zelensky says Putin won't be stopped by talk, only by pressure. He stressed that Ukraine won't reward terrorism and expects partners to stand firm. So I think you're going to have like finding solace in European support, and of course, you know, Canada, Japan, etc.
Witkoff and Trump both told Zelensky, and this was confirmed out of Ukraine, that, you know, Putin's already won some land, so just leave it at that. Let's end it here, and everybody go home to your families. They have, and that's even was a part of his Truth Social tweet or whatever it's called. Zelensky came out and said, we are not losing. This was on Meet the Press. He said, we are not losing. You got it? And
I've
Putin
got
is not winning.
Things from there, yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
great.
Yeah. Which is interesting, because that's something he has actually said before, which is correct. I think that's probably the right way to say it. You don't want to be saying we are winning, but because Ukraine aren't. And my position on the war is it's everyone's going to lose in this war. Really, like Ukraine are not going to come out of this war better than when they started. Everyone loses. It's who loses the worst, right? And how much can Ukraine come out having put Russia in a really bad position, so that Russia definitely lose the most, right? And I think what he said there is absolutely right. You know, Russia's not winning and we're not losing. And I think that's a fair way to see it. But like that Steve Witkoff, like Washington Post report, Trump envoy Steve Witkoff pressed the Ukrainian delegation on handing over Donetsk region to Russia during a meeting on Friday. He used the Kremlin's key argument that the region is predominantly Russian speaking. I mean, this guy is so naive. He's so ignorant. When he came back from the meeting with Putin previously, he didn't even know the names of the Luhansk, Donetsk, Zaporizhia, and Kherson. These are regions that he's giving away on behalf of Ukraine, right? He doesn't even deem to get knowledgeable enough on the situation to know their names. He's deeply ignorant and is clearly not morally in the right place, in my opinion. Anyway,
listen, I have told people, and I will continue to tell people, this language narrative, it's got nothing to do with it. Now, it does that Ukraine has a language, wants their language, deserves their language, has a culture, wants their culture. But this point about, well, that section is Russian speaking, so, or relatively Russian speaking, so it's Russia. That is a wrong narrative. And all you have to do is look historically at this. And when you watch social media posts about, oh, well, this person's fighting about that, you can't speak Ukraine in this office, you can't speak Ukrainian at this place. Okay, that's there, but it's not like it's being promoted. I've worked there for 28 years. I speak Russian. I've never had a problem, zero. In fact, Ukrainians have been thankful that I can communicate with them. And then I'm dropping in the Ukrainian that I'm learning, and they smile and go, oh, thank you, Greg, for working on that. But it's kind, it's considerate. And when I'm out on the front with soldiers, we're speaking Russian. They'll speak to themselves in Ukrainian, but then groups of them are native Russian speakers that are Ukrainian. I can't, all I can do is keep shouting it from the rooftop. So this is nothing but a Kremlin talking point that comes directly from their core values and their mixture of root causes of this conflict. This is just one of those root causes, and it's just not true.
Yeah, it's so frustrating that the people at the very top of the rung, the top of the ladder in the United States are not briefed enough, not knowledgeable enough, not expert enough to be doing the jobs they're doing. It's incredibly infuriating, really. So you were talking about the Meet the Press interview between Zelensky and, well, Kristen Welker. Zelensky is also ready to go to Budapest. So, quote, Trump should put more pressure on Putin than on Hamas. I like this. I think that's a really, really good thing to say there. Like, you are concentrating about Hamas. Hamas are a small bunch of people working over here to, cause problems in Israel. And look at the amount of effort you're putting into them. We're in a full kinetic war across a 1,100 kilometer front. Like, how about putting some more effort in there? But anyway, yeah, carry on.
If I hear one more person compare, and I support what Zelensky said there, but sorry, comparing Hamas to Russia is not apples to apples. Hamas is a terrorist organization supported, funded, and propped up by nations to create this movement and organization. Russia is not a terrorist organization. Russia is a terroristic state that has a full economy, a falsely elected government, or truly elected government, whatever you want to call it, dictatorship, it doesn't matter. It has 135 to 40 million people, spans 11 time zones, and has the largest gold reserve on the planet. So we cannot compare Hamas and Russia. So yes, Trump, great pressure through Bibi on Hamas, strong rhetoric. But I remind you guys, let me tell you how weak that strength really is, because it's about 2 months ago where Trump said, if all the hostages and those that have been killed are not released by this Saturday at 6 p.m., we're going to level you. That never happened. It was delayed. We then got to this phase of it. We do have the 20 hostages released, and about 6 to 8 now of those that were killed released. The ceasefire is extremely unstable and falling apart. And you're talking about, sorry, but compared to Russia, a water drop. A water drop. Russia's a nuclear state. It's not the same.
I agree.
So my point being, yes, Trump put some pressure on Hamas, But there's no pressure now. We're basically on the edge of a ceasefire failing and back to full-scale war. What's he going to do to Putin? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Trump will capitulate to Putin every time. Sorry.
As Zelensky says here, Putin is stronger than the Middle Eastern terrorists. He called Putin a terrorist, but confirmed his readiness to meet the Russian president face to face. Quote, if we really want a just and lasting peace, we need both sides of this tragedy. How can there be any arguments without us? I mean, the fact that he's going to meet Putin on his own, but, you know, bilaterally, Trump, the United States is meeting Russia yet again to discuss the fate of a third party country without inviting that third country, I think is just disgusting.
Bro, he's excited because right now they're working very hard to arrange a meeting with Kim Jong-un. He wants to get back and meet with Kim Jong-un.
Yeah.
Seriously?
He loves dictators. He loves dictators. Goodness.
Do you think that within 2 weeks there will be a summit in Brussels? I'm sorry, in Budapest.
Do you think Putin will turn up? I don't know. I think possibly he could, because he did it in Alaska. He turned up to Alaska. He turned up into, like, the form is there though. So he turned up to Alaska. Nothing got achieved. Trump got frustrated then, by all accounts, because Putin was clearly not going to make any concessions. But Putin's evidently had a chat to Trump on the phone, and now I think we're back at the same situation where Putin's probably thinking he can get something out of this in terms of time.
Here's what I think. I think, and correct me if you disagree, because if you disagree, then I'm wrong. But I think this is solid gold for Vladimir Putin, and he will not only show up, he'll be there early. And I'm going to tell you why.
I don't disagree. Yeah, I'm
going to tell you why. Because the terrorist dictator who has an arrest warrant out by the ICC, whether it's recognized by every nation or not, it's there, who has been shunned off the world stage until put back on it by Donald Trump in Alaska, now once again in the center of the world stage, will be able to get on an airplane, fly over Russian airspace, out over the edge of the Black Sea over Sochi, into Turkey, where he'll be picked up by Turkish fighter jets to accompany him around the Med and up through EU nation or Europe, into the heart of Europe, into Budapest, where his crony Viktor Orban is. Doesn't matter what happens in Budapest. That's irrelevant, because nothing good's going to come from it for Ukraine. But what happens for Russia? Vladimir Putin gets to go home, get back on the TV with Zarubin and say, yeah, you know, I was welcomed into the heart of Russia. I was actually transported there and secured by NATO jets. Who do you think is right? It will become gold for that Kremlin war machine.
Yep. Absolutely agree. It is a win. And
a win.
And also it's a win in more ways than that, though, because Putin will be meeting in the EU. And the EU at the moment is like, we have a problem with Hungary and we have a massive problem with Russia. And so Putin then has the opportunity of meeting Trump in the EU, in Hungary, with the EU just absolutely boiling over this. Like, this is a kick in the nuts for the EU, it's a kick in the nuts for Ukraine and all of the Ukraine supporters, and a win for Putin. And then Trump gets to be in a limelight again, think that he's the guy, the go-between, he's the crux, he's a keystone that finishes this bridge between Ukraine and Russia. And yet it's all about Putin.
Come on, JP. Listen, you've been on holiday for 2 days. You got to get your story straight. There's no bridge between Russia and Ukraine, Europe, Ukraine. There's going to be a bridge and a tunnel between Alaska and Russia. The Trump-Putin bridge and tunnel. What do you think about that, Mr. Zelensky? Well, I don't like it. Why would you even ask that question?
Funny you should mention that, because I had that ready for us. Yeah, there is a tunnel between Alaska.
We're like hand in glove, man.
Yeah, man.
I love you, buddy.
It's just incredible. Like Kirill Dmitriev here, just being very clever. Again, this is just
brilliant.
The Russians are so good at manipulating and directing a narrative and just putting a cat among the pigeons. They're just so good at this stuff. It's frustrating. And the Americans are just getting, well, the Trump administration, sorry, is just getting played time and time again. Here is the Fox News.
Since you mentioned Dmitriev, in case you guys missed it, and when the stream's over, just go check on X or whatever. Dmitriev is now requiring an apology from the Washington Post for misquoting him, and he'll get it. He'll get it.
Well, I don't think for a moment Jeff Bezos has got anything approaching a spine, but there you go. So Trump. So let's listen to Maria Bartiromo speaking to Trump here about Ukraine.
Did you get any sense from Putin that he would be willing or open to the idea of ending this war without taking significant property from?
And I don't like her use of the term property, but there you go.
From Ukraine?
Well, he's going to take something. I mean, they fought, and he has a lot of property. I mean, you know, he's won certain property. If you say that, he's won certain property. We're the only nation that goes in and wins a war and then leaves, you know, like we did under President Bush in the Middle East. We go in, we blast the hell out of everybody, destroy the place, and then we leave, you know. Remember, I used to say, keep the oil. You know, we can't give
what are you talking about?
All of our weapons to Ukraine. We just can't do that. And I've been very good to President Zelensky and to Ukraine, but we can't give, you know, if we're going to be short, I don't want to do that. I can't jeopardize the United States.
Did you get any sense? Did you?
Please, I'm gonna puke. Let me share with you guys that are watching two things right now. Number one, you just learned that Donald Trump will always repeat the last thing he heard. Okay. So the term here that she used was property.
Yeah.
So if you were the commander in chief of a nation and the sitting president, if it had been myself at that table being interviewed by Maria Bartiromo, I would say, Maria, with all due respect, it's a nation that's being fought over. So we don't refer to it as property. We refer to it as territory or land. Property is something you buy from the house down the street. Okay. Secondly, this Tomahawk story is much deeper, and most people are missing it. Most are missing it. The narrative, we did get it, that the narrative changed after the Putin call, but the narrative changed in a way that we must pay attention to. And that is 24 hours prior to the Putin call, Trump was sitting at a table with Argentina, suggesting that the United States has lots of tomahawks. Hey, does Argentina want some tomahawks? We'll give you some tomahawks. Okay.
And he didn't qualify it. He said we've got lots, but he didn't say but. Yeah.
Okay. No qualification. Yeah. You know, the Democrats, they want to shoot tomahawks at me. That's what they do. They're so evil and hatred. We got lots of tomahawks. And in 24 hours after one call from Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin, you know, we don't have a lot of tomahawks. We need to keep them for ourselves. And then the question was put into the reporter's notebook 100% at the White House. Well, you know, Mr. Zelensky, the United States doesn't have a lot of tomahawks, and we need them for our own security. It was completely shifted, because that tells you who the alpha dog is, the alpha. Because when Trump is sitting at the table with Argentina, he's the alpha. When Trump is on a call with Putin, Putin's the alpha. I will debate that against anybody on the planet, and this is just another piece of proof right here. The complete narrative changed.
Yeah. Utterly agree there. Just, it's so frustrating that he's so naive and so lacking in any, like you've said, decorum, but lacking in knowledge, lacking in moral and political nous here, that I go back to just I can't begin to think what Zelensky's really thinking inside his head when he's.
I know what he's thinking
when he's in these meetings. Like there just must be like explosions going off and swear words and all.
Let me help you. No, let me help you. Let me help you. I know Ukrainians. I'm a passport carrying Ukrainian. He's sitting there going, how on earth did you become the president of the United States?
Yeah.
That's what he's thinking. Sir, how can you be this ignorant? That's what's going on in the head.
Yeah.
How can you be this ignorant?
There are some good Republicans still saying the right thing here. This is Congressman Brian Fitzpatrick, represented. Oh, I can't remember. Is it Pennsylvania? No, it's not Pennsylvania. Where is he? Anyway, I have to think about that. So any absurd attempt at drawing a moral equivalency between Russia and Ukraine defies all logic and common sense, and it must stop. If someone invades your home, murders your family, kidnaps your children, and burns down your house, no one should expect a homeowner to get along with the home invader and make a deal. There is only one deal. Good, honourable, and decent neighbours come to the aid of the homeowner. The home invader is removed, isolated, and prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, not just to achieve justice in that individual instance, but also to send a clear message to all other would-be home invaders that they will never ever be rewarded for their bad behavior. Not now, not ever. This is basic patriotic common sense. This is basic law enforcement. This is basic peace through strength. There is no moral equivalency between good and evil. We need moral clarity both at home and abroad now more than ever. That seems to be a rap on the knuckles for Trump directly and Witkoff in saying what should happen. And this, as somebody points out here, this is, I fully concur with this congressman. Let's bring in Doris. So I use Doris as an example all the time as a homeowner, my next door neighbor, my fictional next door neighbor whose home gets invaded, and Ivan breaks in, takes over the bottom floor of the house, and then the police come along or the neighbors come along. Everything's too noisy here. Please, can you be quiet? And like, okay, Ivan, you can keep the bottom floor. Doris, you have to go upstairs. Like that just because we just want peace and quiet here. Like that would be horrific. Everyone in the neighborhood would just be, you can't let Doris give up a bottom floor of a house because some bloke has broken in the house and squatted in the downstairs floor. You like, that is like the police and neighbors would come on and kick Ivan out, because otherwise everyone's home is open season for everyone's home. Now we understand that analogy, right? Here, Brian Fitzpatrick.
He's House point. Rep. He's House Rep from Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I was right. Cool. Nice. I know more about American politics than British politics these days. So that's that he is spot on, and that is a bit of a rap on the knuckles for the American administration. But I don't think they'll pay the blindest bit of heed to that. But yeah, there you go. Another one to share with you. This is Christopher Miller from the Financial Times responding to Max Seddon. New Trump warmly greeted Putin in Alaska, but behind closed doors, the summit quickly went south. Putin flatly rejected Trump's ceasefire offer and went on a rambling digression about history. Trump raised his voice several times and nearly stormed out. Christopher Miller says in Alaska, Putin delivered a rambling historical discussion spanning medieval princes such as Rurik of Novgorod and Yaroslav the Wise, along with the 17th century Cossack chieftain Bogdan Khmelnytsky, figures he often cites to support his claim Ukraine and Russia are one nation. Taken aback, Trump raised his voice several times and at one point threatened to walk out. I mean, none of that would mean anything to Trump. He wouldn't be in the least bit interested in any of that. He's like, I want a ceasefire. He says no, right, I'm getting angry, I don't care about your history. But it's now he seems to have gone, and that after that Alaska meeting, it was clear that he had gone back on the importance of ceasefires, which he was extolling the virtues of previously. Then obviously Putin was like, no ceasefire. So Trump had to come out and say, actually, ceasefires aren't that important. We really, blah, blah, blah. But will a meeting in Budapest just be the same, where Putin is obstinate, doesn't agree to any concessions, and then Trump gets frustrated again? I don't know.
So we here's a good the This is a Russian word. It's tupik, tupik. And this is where we're at. And Russia knows it. We're at a tupik. And a tupik is a dead end because Putin is not going to change the narrative. Trump will consistently change the narrative. He flip-flops, tacos, 2 weeks, whatever reference you want to give. But right now, Putin has success with international people that he needs to persuade, i.e. Donald Trump, by sticking to the same historical narrative, Novorossiya, the history of the lands. And of course, he's communicating to people, especially the American side, that is clueless. We had that recognized by Donald Trump himself in Egypt when he said, I do not know why I sent Witkoff there. He has no experience. He knows nothing about Russia, nothing about Ukraine. I just felt he was the right guy.
Yeah, that was such an admission, that was. And we talked about that previously.
And you know what Putin's doing? He's just smiling.
Yeah, he's loving it.
Once again, I will continue to remind people as well that anytime there are negotiations, there are conversations, media, you need to remember that everybody on the Kremlin team, whether it's Vladimir Putin, Dmitry Medvedev, Sergei Lavrov, Zarubin, we can go to Solovyov, we can go to Zakharova, Margarita Simonyan, we can keep going. I can keep going. Kirill Dmitriev, Ushakov, I can keep listing them. They all speak high-level English, and every one of them can watch English media, whether it's in Europe or in the United States, without an interpreter. They can go to a negotiating table. They have extra time to think or process because they're hearing what the opponent is saying in English, and they're already processing. Then it gets interpreted. It's a tremendous advantage, and they utilize it every day.
Here's another indication that I think it was never going to go well in Washington.
Yermak
because
and the pilots of the plane.
Yeah, who met the president from Ukraine off the plane? No Americans, met by Ukrainians. It was a complete underwhelming response from the Americans. Notice how the animals of the Trump regime, says Astrai Intel, did not even bother to welcome President Zelensky. The hero of the free world was met by the staff of the Ukrainian embassy. This is how America's allies are being treated. So this Ukraine is obviously very angry with that situation. Yeah, and just to add to the threat, what frustrates me about this whole situation is how Trump appears to be...
Breaking news. All miners have been rescued. No casualties.
That's amazing. That's good. Yes. Really good news, because that could have been a disaster
2 minutes
waiting
ago
to happen. Yeah, but I was going to say that what frustrates me is that Trump should know that that the US are the enemy of Russia, right? That Russia is using, is cyber attacking the US, is informationally attacking the US. That he should feel a defensive obligation as commander-in-chief of the United States forces to, and being in charge of the United States, he should recognize that the threat that Russia really are. And
he's morally bankrupt.
This is absolutely true. I mean, here just released research from Microsoft finds that Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea have sharply increased their use of AI to deceive people online and mount cyber attacks against the US. Israel and Ukraine were the second and third most popular cyber targets after the US. But the US is the number one cyber target, and Russia's involved there. And it's just like Europe recognizes that Russia, apart from, say, Hungary and Slovakia, although I do wonder. Slovakia is interesting. I think beneath the surface there, it's a bit more complex. But and with Hungary, you've got a corrupt Orban regime. But outside of that, you know, things might be a little bit different. But and you can say the same about the US. But Trump here is just seems to be willfully ignoring the data that shows very clearly that Russia are the bad guys. It's just as simple as that. Just frustrates me. Oh, there you go. So talking about Fico, here we have Syridenko, who's the new prime minister for Ukraine, and Fico held talks in Slovakia. According to Terez.sk, a number of bilateral consultations are planned in Košice, including those of the heads of foreign ministries dedicated to cross-border cooperation and transport links and cooperation in the energy sector. Ukrainian Prime Minister and the Slovak Prime Minister held talks a couple of days ago. The consultations also consider the issues of defense industry, Ukraine's recovery, EU integration, agriculture and education. So I think, you know, there is a willingness from Slovakia's point of view to work with Ukraine, and they have just provided Ukraine with another assistance package of demining equipment and humanitarian aid. So you know, my position is that Slovakia are probably a little bit different from Hungary in some respects there. But yeah, and then sort of one more thing concerning US politics, and we were talking about Brian Fitzpatrick. Well, now we're going to go to the Republican senator, the majority speaker for the Senate, John Thune. He announced, so it says today here, but this was the 16th, so a couple of days, 3 days ago, that the time has come for Senator Lindsey Graham's bill on imposing sanctions against Russia to be brought to the floor for consideration. Thune emphasized that it's crucial for this bill to become law and stated that he has taken a leading role in ensuring its passage. According to him, the sanctions legislation will become a very powerful tool, and Europeans are expecting precisely this kind of leadership from the United States. The Senate Speaker explained that he wants the bill to be introduced in coordination with the House of Representatives so that the upper chamber does not remain inactive and the adoption process is not delayed. Now, this, I think, shows that outside of the White House, outside of the executive, there is actually really decent support in both the House of Representatives and the Senate for assisting, for supporting Ukraine. And there's a recognition amongst the political classes in the United States that Russia are the bad guys and Ukraine are the good guys here. And this disconnect is so obvious between Congress and the Trump White House, which is partly also reflected in the way that they're doing all these executive orders, and they are not letting the Congress have any power at all. I mean, this is part of the unified executive theory, Project 2025, and the Trump White House approach of trying to consolidate power in the White House and away from Congress. John Thune needs to stand up, needs to get his spine active and actually put this bill to the Senate. Anyway.
Well, I don't know, you're not an American, but the reality is, I don't know how UK politics works, but in the US, just a normal person like myself, you can call your rep, you can write a letter, you can send an email. In fact, my local rep is just down the road from me. I go by and go right in the office. So that's what we can do. It just gets disappointing when you see flip-flopping nonstop. It's hard to how to even communicate with your elected officials, but we must do it. We must communicate with them. And I encourage people to always contact your local officials. Now, with that said, one of the reasons it gets frustrating is because when the okay, here's what Ukraine just posted. All right. Ukraine just posted this. Everybody listen. From Donald J. Trump. After getting to know and fully understand the Ukraine-Russia military and economic situation, and after seeing the economic trouble it is causing Russia, I think Ukraine, with the support of the European, is in a position to fight and win all of Ukraine back in its original form. With time, patience, and the financial support of Europe, and in particular NATO, the original borders from where this war started is very much an option. Why not? Russia has been fighting aimlessly for 3.5 years, a war that should have taken a real military power less than a week to win. This is not distinguishing Russia. In fact, it makes them look very much like a paper tiger. When the people living in Moscow and all the great cities, towns, and districts all throughout Russia find out what is really going on with this war, the fact that it's almost impossible for them to get gasoline through long lines, which are being formed, and all of the other things taking place in the war economy, where most of their money is being spent on fighting Ukraine, which has great spirit and only getting better. Ukraine would be able to take back their country in its original form, and who knows, maybe even go further than that. Putin and Russia are in big economic trouble, and this is the time for Ukraine to act. In any event, I wish both countries well. We will continue to supply weapons to NATO for NATO to do what they want with them. Good luck to all. Donald J. Trump, that was a Freudian slip. Donald J. Trump, President of the United States of America, September the 23rd. Okay. And Ukraine just posted it now and is asking, where did this person go?
Nice. Yeah. Absolutely.
Where did
do you know what? That is so
go?
good. That's so good. I don't know what they've said alongside that, or they could just post that without any comment, because that would be.
Did this person go?
Have they said those words?
Yeah, I'm reading it right now.
Who said that? Which?
It's coming out of the Ukrainian military.
Right. So not necessarily official.
This is not Zelensky.
So I would like to see someone in the Ukrainian government just repost that. Someone, I don't know, foreign minister or someone like that, to just say, look, just put it out there. This is what he said, because he ain't saying that now.
Correct.
And yeah,
that may happen. Zelensky, in his statement tonight, and I'm getting ready to put that video up in English, guys, so be looking for it. He basically said, we're going to be having a meeting of the coalition of the willing. We're not giving up any of our territory. We're not giving any gifts to the aggressor. We are going to continue to strike long range, and we're going to work with our European partners. And as far as America, they want to help on some gas and infrastructure to Europe. That's fine. And the Pearl program, we're fighting. So at some point, I think the only reason they would be hesitant is because they want the Pearl program to continue, and this guy is so erratic.
The problem is that Trump has leverage here, and the leverage is that you can't stand up to Trump and have a go at him. Like the Europeans can't, the Canadians can't, the British can't, and the Ukrainians can't, in the context of Ukraine only. Like we can't, no one can stand up to the US or stand up to Trump and give him an earful and say what they really think, because Trump will just go, well, screw you then. I'm not going to give intelligence I'm not going to give satellite support to Ukraine. And then that is, so he has leverage, and he can also say, and we're not going to sell Patriot missiles and whatnot. So the problem is everyone has to kowtow, has to bend their knee to everything that Trump says, because he has that leverage. And you might not like the fact that everyone has to bootlick Trump, but they have to bootlick Trump, and it is really frustrating.
Okay, I'm going to take you one layer deeper now. One layer deeper. When you are trained KGB, it's like you're trained CIA, MI6. You're programmed really to do what you have signed up for. And that's Soviet KGB world, that Cold War era, moving into the fall of the Soviet Union, beginning of the new Russia, okay, and to where we're at today. Vladimir Putin, and I'm in no way praising him. Please, people, understand, dear friends, but I can call truth. It's easy to see. Vladimir Putin, Sergei Lavrov, Kirill Dmitriev, and the list goes on. When they see Donald Trump flip-flop every 2 weeks, from September the 23rd, Ukraine can take all of their country back and also wax into Russia. October the 17th, you need to give up your territory, because if not, Putin's going to take more. in 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks, they being Putin and his cronies realize that the one that is supposed to be the strong man, Donald Trump, is inherently weak, manipulatable, or easily manipulated, and they got him just like that by the dog's bollocks.
And like, so that shift on the Thursday, so the day before, when when Putin phoned Trump, you just alights all the same suspicions that there's compromise, because it's almost as if he like phoned up and it's like, is that Donald? Just to remind you, we have this. I'm sending it to you now on WhatsApp. Just reminding you that we have this on you. Ding, 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 ding. Trump goes, oh yeah, damn it. And then he does his switcheroo, because I mean, I don't want, like, I am 50-50 on the whole compromat thing on Trump. Sometimes I think it 100% has to have it. Like, they have to have 1987. He comes back from visiting Moscow, trying to get hotels sorted or whatever. Takes out a full page $90,000 ad or whatever it is in whatever it was, New York Times, slagging off NATO. Like, why would a real estate mogul be interested in slagging off NATO and spending that much money to take out a full page broadsheet newspaper advert to have a go at NATO, unless he had been primed by, so and then it goes on from there, and all these Irina Zabritsky and other people, Craig Unger, and all these people that have written books on this, and you're thinking, I know it's a bit conspiracy theory, but honestly, there has to be something in it, because
conspiracy theory or not, 50-50 or not, we can call facts. And the fact is, Putin controls the Trump narrative. Easily. It's easy to see, guys. And additionally, I'm going to throw one more chip out there before we start winding down. Donald Trump is, by character, very vengeful. Like, he likes to pay back. There's very little mercy, grace, forgiveness, definitely no honor. That's flushed down the toilet. But if you've ever done anything against him, he hates you. And he wants to destroy you.
Zelensky 2019.
He made that statement openly at the Kirk Memorial, open to the world. I hate my enemy. I hate people who have come after me. I'm going after them. There is something in his craw that has been programmed there by Russia and by those around him, that Ukraine wanted to take him down. Ukraine helped fix the election, wherever the narrative goes. So somewhere in him, there is a root of hatred for Ukraine. It's just simple as it is. And he's not blind. He's not blind. He sees that people, right, Republicans, Democrats, people in the center, overwhelmingly support Ukraine. He's not that stupid. He goes to places where he sees the Ukraine flag flying and a Ukraine bumper sticker. He doesn't see Ukrainian or Russian flags and Russian bumper stickers. He's not that stupid. But when he turns vengeful, nothing will stop him to this point from trying to carry out vengeance. And so I think, in addition to whether there's the conspiracy theory of he's compromised, or at the bare minimum, he loves dictators. They're his heroes. That's his gods, dictators. And he wants to be like them. It's obvious. Look at the White House, the Oval Office. Okay. So at the minimum, you have that. And you also have the possibility that there's a root in there that is anti-Ukraine, and it just gets that button gets pushed every so often, and we get what we get, which is a spineless leader of the United States. A bully is always spineless. You punch them in the face, it's over.
Yeah, it's interesting that you hadn't heard about this, so I just sort of add this one in as a little nugget for the end of the video. We'll look at our super chats and whatnot in a second.
Okay.
So history has shown us that emperors like to build their triumph arcs, right? Arc de Triomphe in France, obviously very famous one in Paris, but there are other ones throughout history.
Beautiful one in Moldova, in Kishinev. Incredible.
Yes. And Donald Trump wants to build one himself, and this is quite extraordinary, but for him type thing. And it just goes to show what an emperor he really thinks he is, and how narcissistic he is. So this was kind of hot mic caught the other day in the White House.
What is this, Mr. President? For who?
Thanks, guys. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, no, I know where it is, but who's it for?
Thank you, guys.
I don't know if you caught what he said there. So he said, "Who's it for?" And Trump answers, "Me." Like, he's not like for the American people, for like the military, for, you know, to recognize our greatness. Who's it for? Me. That was his answer.
Yeah, no, I know where it is, but who's it for?
Thank you, guys.
The Arc de Trump? What is?
Just absolutely incredible. Now there's a little model of it there. I mean, it's but you know, this is what Trump is spending his time.
Who is that talking to him? Because they're talking to him in a very aggressive way.
Yeah,
I would love to know who that is.
Yeah, I did know on a previous one that I looked at it. Is it O'Keefe? Someone at O'Keefe. I'll just check that out. Give me 2 ticks. Stay there. Here we go. I'm sure it was someone O'Keefe. Ed O'Keefe. So is that Ed O'Keefe? I don't know who Ed O'Keefe is here. It says, "What the F?" As Ed O'Keefe was pulled from the Oval Office,
yeah,
he
that's
asked about a
mock-up
of a massive stone arch to be built in Washington, D.C. When he asked who it would honor, Trump said, "Me. Our government is shut down, and this is what he's spending taxpayer money on."
Okay, but now I understand. He's journalist on CBS. That's him, but he was born in New York. Okay, I get it now. Because he was communicating like New York, man.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
he's from New York. Okay.
It seems like it wasn't. I don't know. It seems like they were okay with each other there. Like that's Trump sort of saying to him. But yeah, I don't know.
They must have some relationship, because that was hard.
It's quite forward, wasn't it? But yeah, there you go. So I thought I'd throw that in. Right. Now let's go to a few super chats. Thank you very much to Michael Vuchar. You all have fun. I'm going to focus on a fourth plenum. So there's stuff going on in China where the party are going to be meeting. All the generals out on Friday is bad news for Russia. So there is some potential good news, and there are interesting relationships between China and North Korea that could have an effect on support for Russia. So the world of geopolitics is a very complex one. But thank you very much, Michael, for that. Dunk on you. Welcome, Hope Train Riders. Thank you on behalf of Greg.
Thank you, Dunk. They're in there working hard, the mods. And let me say right now, thank you to all the moderators for jumping on so quickly. Johnny called me, and about 90 minutes later we were rolling. So thank you to mods on both channels. It's so important, and appreciate each and every one of you.
Absolutely. Likewise, from my point of view, too. Penguin 905 having a bit of a rant there against Trump, and I agree with every single word there. Dunk on you gifting some memberships as well as for you. So that's
thank
awesome.
You, Dunk.
Zeb Carter from my own channel. Thank you very much, Zeb. Really appreciate that, mate. F Oink for you with an absolutely tremendous gift of memberships.
50 memberships. And F Oink, Hungarian brother.
Yeah.
Pounding
great
support.
Yeah. Supports my channel as well, so thank you. Joanne Pearce on your channel said, "Sorry, I've not for a minute thought Taco was going to do anything for Ukraine, not going against Daddy Putin." To which someone replies, Jim on your channel says, "What are you talking about? We've supplied the majority of their military equipment." So what's interesting there, and I don't want to relitigate this too much, other than like that all happened under Biden. Say what you like about Biden, but all the equipment that was given to Ukraine. When under Biden, Trump has done nothing apart from sell stuff. So that's not assisting Ukraine from their own moral, political point of view. That is selling stuff so that other people can assist the Ukraine. The payment for that stuff has come from Europe. And now when you look at the Kiel Institute tracker for aid, the aid is overwhelmingly given by Europe now. And Europe is, I don't know, was it 2-1 over the course of the war? So the majority hasn't come from the United States, although there a lot of kit did come from. That's not to put down the US were absolutely integral in supporting Ukraine, and Ukraine would be screwed without US's help. But actually,
completely agree. But the reality is
a long time ago now.
You're quoting facts though. You're using your source as the Kiel Institute, and I use the same source, and our support has changed. It's now transactional, and it's just a fact.
Yeah, and you look at you look at what Italy's just given the last few weeks, and they've been rightly criticised for not doing enough. They're quite strong on the talk. Giorgia Meloni, most of the stuff they gave was before Giorgia Meloni became president, right? Or is she prime minister? Prime minister, I think. And the previous government actually did most of the aid to Ukraine. But actually, in the last couple of weeks, although some of it's quite old equipment, a lot of Centauro B1, sort of a bit like the French AMX 10 RC, these kind of wheeled with a gun. They're giving hundreds of those. They're giving a whole load of support vehicles as well. And that's the sort of thing that Ukraine really do need. A lot of vehicles that are at least somewhat armored. They're getting by, as the Russians are, on using a lot of SUVs and a lot of Bukankas for the Russians. Both sides are screaming out, I think, for some more armored equipment.
The reality is, though, what the United States is currently selling through the Pearl program is important stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just a balance there we're trying to manage. And it was just disappointing the last couple of days, but Ukraine is resilient. We'll figure it out. We'll figure out how to do the best to keep Patriot supplies are vitally important. A Patriot battery was just blown up 3 days ago. It's confirmed 100%.
Is that because I reported that this morning and I showed the video?
Pavlograd.
So it's a radar and a launcher, but there are a few people saying, which always happens when you see Ukrainian stuff getting destroyed, saying definitely looks like decoy. There's no secondary explosions. The type,
there was a massive.
Out in the middle of the field, in the middle of the day, etc., etc. So there are some people claiming, which is always going to be the case. So I was just like, I don't know whether it definitely happened or not, but that video's out there. F oink again for you. I said it before. I say it again. Trumpty Dumpty is running interference for Putzler. So yeah, don't disagree there. Andrew Scully, Trump is a Russian asset. Good people are dying. Yes, and that is the reality that we have to remind ourselves of. Thank you, Andrew. Maximus 8992. Trump will always support Putin. He is a dictator. Yep. Paul Gilbert, great discussion and chat. Sadly, I have to leave. Thanks, Paul, for being here when you were. Stay strong and stand with Ukraine. Thanks for your support, mate. Mark Bisque, the great Mark Bisque. You visited Olena, Mark's wife's parents recently. When you two get together and live stream, it usually means something serious is going on. We must never forget that Putin cannot negotiate for peace because he will not be able to survive peace.
100% accurate right there, Mark.
This is what I've said since the beginning of the war, that Putin's connected to this war in an existential way, in a way that Zelensky isn't. So if Ukraine were to lose this war, and for them that would mean, I don't know, losing some territory up to Dnipro or something, I don't know, like say some maximalist Russian outcome takes place, Zelensky doesn't die. Zelensky isn't put in prison. Zelensky doesn't lose power. I mean, he will get elected out and then he'll go and probably go back into TV or something. I don't know, whatever he does, go on a speaking circuit. But like his life isn't threatened with Ukraine losing the war in a way that I think Putin's is. So if Putin loses this war, then he loses the support, he loses face, he loses the legacy that he so desperately wants. And dictators don't retire. So if there's a toppling of Putin, like he doesn't then go and sit in his Sochi palace for the next 20 years living out his retirement. Like there'll be ramifications for Putin. So like he is making decisions knowing that his own personal existence is connected to the outcome of his war. So Zelensky is making decisions on behalf of Ukraine, Putin is making decisions on behalf of him and his legacy, and that I think there's an important distinction there. So I think Mark is on.
The easy way to say it is Vladimir Putin is all in, Kim Jong-un is all in.
Yeah.
And because this is the difference in society.
Dictators are always all in.
Correct.
Yeah.
Trump wants to be all in.
Yeah. Yeah. And because this is what we thought about Trump 1.0 is that when he loses power, then the courts come after him. But the problem is he had Merrick Garland as the Attorney General, who was really, really slow and really overly cautious. Whereas actually they should have prosecuted Trump far more vigorously, and he wouldn't have been able to run again. Because actually that's what not from lawfare, but that's literally what should have happened, because he should have been prosecuted for a whole host of things for breaking the law, right? So when you start getting in and then you break the law when you're in power, then of course as soon as you come out of power, then the law comes and catches you up, particularly in a democracy, or at least a quasi-democracy. So Trump could get to a position whereby he doesn't want to lose power, because that's his existence is challenged.
Let me answer a question here from Mad Up Max. Mad Up JP missed the fact Zelensky revoked citizenship from a mayor, not boding well at the moment. Russian propaganda running with it. Maybe will bite Zelensky after. No, it will not bite Zelensky after. And for everybody watching, I can say this now publicly. We've known for years that the Odessan mayor was a Russian bot, but due to the litigation and the corruption of Ukraine, they couldn't get him out. The SBU was running this operation for months and months to get his original Russian passport to validate it, what we already knew. Odessa, the most corrupt city in all of Ukraine, because the Russian bot was installed as the mayor. That's a fact. That is why there were so many difficulties with air defense. And how are all these things blowing up in Odessa? That is a fact. Ukrainians are not looking at this sadly. They are rejoicing that Russian clown is gone. That Russian clown is the one that tried to kill Sergei Sternyenko 3 times, stabbing, beating, and a gunshot. He is a mafioso crime boss, Russian, period.
So
he's gone. It's great news.
That is a pretty good riposte there from Greg. I
love
Greg
Mad at Mac. Yeah, people need to hear this, because this is great. It's great.
Yeah,
and then people say, well, military administration has been put in place. Yeah, because you can't. Who you gonna put there? His assistant? No, he's a bot too. It's a criminal organization. Guys, you don't hear everything that happens inside Ukraine. It's a war zone. It's a war zone. There are a lot of cities that have mayors or councils that are still under military administration because it's martial law and an active war zone. Mykolaiv, for example, is under military administration. I personally know the military administrator of the Mykolaiv Defense Forces and Regions. I sit in his office every time I'm there, drink coffee and tea, and he gets me access to frontline military. But the mayor is still there. They're working in partnership. This is a war. You cannot compare your local politics, your country, anything to Ukraine. It is a war zone. And the Odessa mayor getting called out, removed, military administration put in to clean it up is the best news of the week.
Yeah. It's great to have Brendan Kelly in the house. I should be speaking to you at some point, Brendan. We haven't sorted that out yet. He's mapped all of the human safari attacks in Kherson, and there's an absolutely fantastic Tuchny map on the Tuchny website that Brendan Kelly has been involved in, and I think everyone should check that out. Where are you in my in the stream here? Anyway, I appreciate you. Brendan popping by. Sorry, I'm just padding this out because I'm trying to find where he is. Anyway, he was there Here you are. Greg is spot on. There's major espionage incident in Odessa at least every 2 weeks, it seems. The guy Zelensky brought in is a good dude from Dnipropetrovsk ODA. So Brendan, he knows his Kherson stuff. That map on Tochny is absolutely well worth looking at. Thank you, Adam Rounds.
Thank you, Brendan.
Yeah, absolutely. Arne Anderson here with some Norwegian love says, and who's going to build a road over 10,000 kilometers of tundra? So this is with respect to the tunnel between Alaska and Russia. Of course, it's completely ridiculous, and Russia do not have the money to be even remotely able to spend on that. But someone's also saying that the tectonic plates around there aren't exactly conducive to building a tunnel either. So it seems to be a rather probably a bit of PR psyops type thing. So there you go. Thanks to all the members. Send Doris a pint. Yeah, absolutely, poor woman. She's had it hard. Andrew Scully says Zelensky has the patience of a saint. Ukraine will win 100%. Despite Trump and his sycophants and immoral regime. It just does my head in as an Aussie. You saying Aussies don't have patience?
No. I'm saying Zelensky has patience. 100%.
No. I'm because an Aussie here saying it does my head in because he's got patience of a saint.
Yeah.
So BME, thank you for your support, JP. You're going to need a tipple after talking about the orange gibbon. This is true. Mango Mussolini does get my goat. That is for sure. Thanks, mate. Appreciate it. Dutchy, for you, says for their own flamingos. I mean, I am just waiting with bated breath to see, whether Ukraine can mount serious attacks with some long-range missiles. Just fingers crossed on that one. Really, really hope so. Interesting. I've not watched Prof. Gerdes today, but he sounds, someone's not happy. Delusional, promoting strange thoughts while promoting blah, 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 blah. So I don't want to, but that could be an interesting conversation for us to have, me, you, and Prof. Gerdes, because I know that he gets in trouble for people saying that he supports Trump a lot, or at least, from a Republican point of view, seems to, as according to some people, support Trump, but actually, he will say that he is not supportive of MAGA, etc., etc. But I'd imagine someone that is looking for Trump to support Ukraine would be having some serious whiplash at the moment, and it would be interesting. Have you spoken to Prof in the last couple of days?
I speak to Prof every day. JP Lindsley out of Ukraine made a really good statement, and he works very hard to convince MAGA people to get on board. He put an interesting post out. I haven't seen any of Prof's stuff or anything, so I can't comment on it. But I did see where JP Lindsley put out a good statement where Zelensky did good, but then he offered there were some other ways that Zelensky could have even tried to sway the room more at that meeting on Friday. And it was good information. The bottom line is this, guys.
He shouldn't need to do that, though. But yeah,
listen,
sorry.
The bottom line is this. And you may disagree with me, and that's okay. MAGA is a cult. Okay? Conservatism, Republican, Democrat cannot be defined the same way it was in the 80s, in the 90s, in the 2000s. MAGA is a cult that goes wherever the cult leader, Donald Trump, goes. Okay? So if Donald Trump said the ocean is pink, MAGA would say the ocean is pink. If Donald Trump was to say, let's send Ukraine 1,000 Tomahawks and end this war, MAGA would say, where do we go to pack them? We'll help you pack them. If he says the opposite, they'll say the opposite. But there was reports just put out by the same Kiel Institute and also by Harvard, and one more polling that shows in the United States, in general, Democrats, Republicans, and independents overwhelmingly support Ukraine for victory. MAGA is a cult.
Yeah.
Sorry.
100%. And just to leave us on this, because we talked about this before. In fact, we played the video here, but I forgot to really focus on this. And by the way, thank you to the mods. Also, thank you to Kathy's guests for supporting the channel. So I really appreciate that, Kathy's guests. Thank you.
By the way, breaking right now, Sternyenko confirming that the Russians are in the center of Pokrovsk, setting up control with fire control over both city entrances now.
That
so
is, Pokrovsk is
tough.
Is looking bad.
Very tough.
Yeah. Yes. Going back to what Trump said, I didn't pick up on the one bit. I did as it was going, and I gave you my facial expressions and like one. But when he said he's going to take something, Trump says Putin has one territory, he's won certain property. Like the winning, like the phrasing of that, just I think is so indicative of someone who really doesn't appreciate the reality of this war, the moral evaluation of this war, the political evaluation of this war, the political strategizing that you would need to do concerning this war. It's just, honestly, if you're talking about how Russia has just won this territory in that simplistic manner, I just think, oh my goodness, you're the wrong person for the job, mate. Anyway, that's just my last tuppence on that.
Okay, pause. I have to say one thing. Johnny, why are you doing this to me? Why? So just look at the phraseology. Everything's a win. Everything is about getting rich. And in Trump's actual statement, verbatim, is he with Putin on that call Thursday night said, as soon as the war is over, we can begin to really partner together economically to make strong wealth together. It shows you where the mentality is. Everything's about winning and losing and getting rich and not having any moral fiber about what is right versus wrong, whether you win, lose, or draw, or make a dollar or go broke. There are moral issues that are much more important.
Yeah. And I guess that's where we can leave it today, Greg. What are your hopes for the next week, month?
Well, Zelensky said it himself this evening. I've already voiced it over. I'll be working on that video, getting it up very soon, guys, next hour or so. You're going to see a hard push from Ukraine this week on European relations, Pearl initiatives. There's also already coalition of the willing meetings that are coming. So a lot of efforts there. So I think you're going to see a shift of attention from the US now to Europe even stronger. And you're going to see a very difficult week of strikes on Ukraine. And you're going to see strikes continue on Russian infrastructure. But Russia's loaded right now. The bombers have relocated from the east to the west. They're fully loaded with salvos. The subs are loaded. You say, well, how do you know all this stuff? Well, I talked to the right guys. They know they're all loaded and ready. And we'll probably see a combo strike over the next 48 hours is what guys I follow expecting. And we're at a critical time. Weather's changing and it's tough.
Yeah. Or at least, it looks like another substation has been hit by Ukraine tonight. So that's good news.
And Ukraine will continue to do that.
Yeah.
Nonstop.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you've seen this shift to substations. They are much easier to hit. They're going to be less protected, but they are functionally the same. They're probably easier to do damage to as well. So, I think you've seen a real shift.
You and I could talk forever, man. So we drive by these substations all the time. They're everywhere. A huge electrical grid and power grid in Ukraine, of course. It's a powerful nation, powerful. And remember, guys, it was a nuclear nation. They gave them up for security guarantees. How's that working out for them? But the reality is huge infrastructure there with electrical infrastructure. And early in the war, it was okay for sandbags, electrical, like chain link fencing to go up and go around and consider them protected. And earlier in the war, it was a relatively decent position of protection. But now, guys, that's when 40 shaheeds were going a night. And we go, oh man, 40 shaheeds. Now we can have 500. And the munitions these shaheeds are carrying are multiple times stronger. They're better. And also these ballistic or cruise missiles that they're intermixing with those shaheeds, it's tough to stop. It's just tough to stop. And this is why Ukraine needs this type of weaponry to level the playing field.
Yeah. Absolutely agree, 100%. Well, look, Greg, thank you for your time. Thank you to the mods, everybody. All the wonderful support for the channels. Thank you for your enlightening live chat at the side. It looks like we've been awarded a medal, Greg. Greg and John are always spot on. They're both awarded a medal. So thank you very much, Michael Lemming.
Thank you, Michael.
I'll see that in the post.
Yeah, and I saw somebody in the chat. I think it was on mine going by Pokrovsk, starting to look like Bucha. No, it's not looking like Bucha. Pokrovsk is starting to look like Bakhmut. Yeah, every building being Konstantinivka, guys. Oh my, I just got some new photos out of Konstantinivka today.
It's heartbreaking there as well.
It's going to look like Bakhmut.
Yeah,
destroyed completely.
This is what liberation looks like in Russia. You know,
exactly.
that is their sense of liberation, which is rubbleize everywhere and
that's it.
Kill civilians. Yeah,
but
yay, Russia.
If you guys don't mind, on the way out, as we close out and you finish up, hit that like button or leave a comment. That helps us grow. And when we can grow, we can share more truth or observations and talk to people of the world about what's happening. And somewhere in there, we'll all find truth together. So thank you, guys.
Absolutely. And I believe Rick the Ukrainian's having a live at the moment. So some people say,
it's Sunday. He's rolling. So go check Rick out.
Cool beans. Okay, right, well, look, you take care of yourself, mate, and stay online, and then but everyone else,
once again, thank you moderators so much.
Absolutely. Take care, Toodle Pips.